Today I have two gentlemen with me, Errol van der Merwe and Pierre van Ginkel. Errol's got over 40 years of experience in the IT industry, helping businesses implement numerous systems and help them grow. Good morning, nice to have you here.
Thanks, I appreciate the opportunity. Pierre, morning, and thanks for being here. So Pierre, you're the General Manager of the Acumatica Business Unit in iPlan. And you and I have had a couple of interesting discussions about how the world of systems has changed from my early days in the 80s and the 90s through to where we are today, and how affordable it is today for small and medium companies to get into the integrated systems environment, which wasn't something we enjoyed in those early days. You had to be big and have deep pockets to get into systems. Won't you please just introduce Ronel for me, and then I'll tell people something about you.
Thank you so much, Errol. Thanks for the introduction. I have with me Ronel Liebenberg. She's an operations manager at iPlan, and before joining iPlan, she was a finance manager and has a qualification as an accountant.
Good. So you, in your role as general manager and systems person, have had how many years experience in the systems environment?
So before joining iPlan, I have about 11 years in real work environments where we played the part of the customer on the system, and about 5, almost 6 years now at iPlan playing the part as the implementation partner.
Okay, good. So you've got lots of credible first-hand experience about the challenges confronting small businesses when it comes to systems that allow them to track and manage their whole business.
Yeah, I would say so.
So let's start with this discussion about somebody who's got an idea for a business. It's maybe 1 or 2 people. It goes well. They're in a garage. They've got some equipment in the garage. They're selling some stuff. It's not much and it's easy to track on a small financial system and maybe a spreadsheet or 2 or even maybe your phone. But it goes well. And after 6 months, I've got another person, and then I've got a guy in a bakkie doing deliveries for me, and all of a sudden, I'm keeping stock, I'm doing dispatch, I have a supply chain, I have people who are phoning me, and demand is building up. So talk to me about the challenges from a systems perspective in that organic growth in small businesses.
So I think what is important to understand is a lot of people still have this idea of ERP systems or integrated business systems being very expensive. They don't have exposure to proper systems, so they get advice from the guy next door with a factory or a business next door to go for a financial system. Most of the times it's because of the pressure from the accountants to say you need something more structured, so they'll invest in a core financial system that does not necessarily cater for inventory or operations. For that, they still jump into Excel mostly because it's quick and it's easy and it's affordable. And with that comes its challenges. I remember when I started, I did the same thing. I also developed and invented amazing spreadsheets. But if I did not keep my finger on the pulse, they would get corrupted because it's not meant for sharing, it's not a central database. Anyone has access to change or manipulate data, and that causes problems in reporting. So at the end of the day, you might have fairly accurate financials, but you don't really have a clue of what's going on in your operations.
Ronel, and so when that guy has put in the core financial, but he's relying on Excel for other stuff, keeping track on inventory, deliveries, timekeeping, what are the challenges? I mean, why is that not a good idea for a small business? It's cheap.
So usually your small businesses not necessarily have to be audited, and they would just do their financials. They would give a trial balance typically to an accountant, and that would be enough for sales purposes and so forth. But when you start growing and you need to do a proper audit on your financials, then it does become a challenge because you can't tie back necessarily in the system the figures. So now they have a spreadsheet and then they have a trial balance. Now that the auditors are asking for, but what does this figure consist of? And if you're just passing journals during the month to correct your stock figure, that's kind of, the auditors don't really take that as accurate. And so they do see some challenges in that, and they would most probably qualify the audit for something as small as that. So I think when a small business is growing into a bigger business, having an integrated system, you can rely on the figures, and the auditors do feel more comfortable on accepting the figures as credible. So
Okay,
yeah.
so it's clear that one of the challenges associated with having a core financial system and everything else being done on something else,
Yes.
even if there are other systems, I buy a
Yeah.
small inventory system or stock control system, but it's separate from my financial system. There's a potential challenge with financial control and reporting.
Yes, definitely.
What are the other challenges?
I think it goes
Yeah.
further than just purely financial. To me, coming from an operations background, the ability to plan and act and react does become a problem, because you might have a CRM system or a sales driven system that is loose standing from your stock management system.
Yeah.
In that case, you need some guy, and I'm going to say some guy, who keeps track of what's happening on the sales side of the business and who keeps track on what's happening on the stock side of the business. And something to make sure they don't run out of stock. Because you do have a lot of customer losses and reputation losses if you do not deliver according to promise. So once you have these loose standing systems, operationally it becomes a challenge to keep track of it all and to maintain a positive, let's call it stock level, to supply the customer and to ensure customer satisfaction. That would be one of the main issues, is keeping this thing in balance, and to make sure that you have the traceability throughout, to say, well, even when you buy stock, you do have to buy it according to a demand.
Yes.
And it's the same story with like I explained earlier, is if you can't just have sales orders and don't keep track of that as a demand to buy your raw material.
Yes.
So I think planning material and material availability is a big challenge. I don't think so. I know it from experience. It's a big challenge if you're not tapped into an integrated system.
Okay. I've also noticed over the COVID period with some of the customers I consult to that COVID and people that have been ill and have been forced to isolate at home have been massively disruptive in smaller businesses, where Susan's responsibility was the stock control spreadsheet, and all of a sudden she's at home, and by the way, she's ill. Whether she wants to or not, she can't do that thing.
Yeah.
And it has disrupted the whole business. And so, that talks to what you're saying about making sure that the stuff we do for our business in the systems are integrated from one platform. It's a really important concept.
Yes, what we usually refer to as one version of the truth.
Yeah, good.
And that is something that usually in your integrated systems, like your ERP system, it's one version. If I look at a stock item from this screen and from another screen, it's the same stock item, the same availability of it. It's not two things that need to integrate, and there's a channel that still need to run through, and then someone needs to check it. So it's one version of the truth, and that's one of the most important things for us.
And I'm hoping that people that may be watching and listening to this don't have to take a big leap of faith to understand that a fully integrated system makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
The challenge is fully integrated systems tend to be very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Historically, they've been massively expensive if you go back to my early days in systems, and I know it's become more affordable. 25 or 30 years ago, the first big players in the integrated or ERP system space were starting to produce light versions of their products to try and break down into that mid market, and then later on the small market. But given the Internet of Things and the availability of cloud-based solutions, There are now hundreds of suppliers that provide very cute and feasible and functional software products that make it hugely affordable for people to play at the small medium with sensible, responsible, integrated solutions. My question to you is, should every company invest in a fully integrated solution?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
If you have a small business and you are comfortable where you are, you have control to a point where you can still report figures to whoever your shareholder is. If you are the sole shareholder and you know what's going on, you don't intend to grow the business and it's only something to support your life, don't invest in something else. If it's working, don't replace it. However, any small business with the ambition to grow and to expand and to distribute their operations into multiple branches or areas will find it very difficult not to invest in an integrated system.
So by the time I've run out of space in my garage and I'm now producing something on a lathe in my lounge and I'm realizing I've got to go to a factory, I'm probably at the point where I need to do some really serious thinking about software more than 10 Excel sheets and a core financial system.
Yes.
And I think the important thing you said is about ambition, isn't it?
Yeah.
If your ambition is not to live with a small home business that just ticks over quietly and makes a comfortable amount of money, but you want to become a more significant business, software has to be part of your thinking.
Yes, I think one mistake a lot of companies are, I don't want to call it a mistake, but the challenge they have is when they start growing, they don't want to invest immediately in a proper ERP system. And then they wait too long. And because they get comfortable, because they have Susanne who's doing all the stock control sheets. So she's got 20 sheets, she knows what she's doing. So they don't feel the need to implement something. But like you said, what happens if Susanne's not there? And usually at that point they realize they have to invest in a ERP system. Then getting all that information into a system is usually double the effort. Instead of going back when you moved out of your garage into your factory, get your system, start with a basic, just the normal modules, and then build on top of that. And you've got your 10 items that you're selling, you add your 10 items, and as you grow, you add it already on your system. So I think that's one of the mistakes that, like I said, the challenges that companies have. They wait too long, and then it's double the effort that it will take to put you from a 20 separated systems into one integrated system. So I think that's... Yeah.
So you have raised an interesting point, and it's where we're going with this discussion. You have said that if you buy or implement a small, fully integrated system, and I just want to clarify this phrase ERP that's so commonly used and misused in our systems world, in the old days referred to enterprise resource planning, and it meant you could plan everything that happens in your business. But I don't think it has as much understanding today as just, I need one integrated system. So your point was, why not use a small, fully integrated system? Start with only the financials if you need them.
Yes.
And then grow into the rest of the stuff you need as and when you need it.
Yes.
And let me tell you what fascinates me about the new market and new software is its ability to do that thing well.
Yes.
It was, in my days, it was a massive project to get anything done and implemented in large companies, by the way, as it still is. But when I look at software today and I see that there's this whole thing waiting for you to grow into, but I can start just with the financials. And if I then start keeping some stock, I can just add an inventory module, but immediately it's fully integrated. So I don't want to talk a little about that scalability. And that's another reason why it's a really good sense for small businesses to start with a fully integrated system that they can scale as they grow.
Yes. So scalability is absolutely important. You have to look at scalability anytime you invest in software, any software. So if you intend on growing a business, if you intend on adding manufacturing operations, you should always look at your systems from that point of view, that they are able to cater for your needs going forward. Most people I know, most larger business I know, have a 5 to 10 year roadmap of where they're headed with their business. I know small companies don't necessarily invest in that, but it's something to keep in mind that they are not static and they're not going to stand and do the same thing forever. And for that, they need a system that can cater for changes. We saw major changes in the business environment in the past 2 years, of especially how people work, where they work from. So even that is a consideration in a system, is how accessible is the system from anywhere. Traditional ERP systems had to be hosted on a server somewhere in an office, and you needed a secure connection on that network to connect. So part of the scalability discussion is the accessibility discussion. Is I I'm taking the phone app because I can take it anywhere. That's why I downloaded the app to manage my stock, and I'm kind of happy with it. But this now generates an output, and somebody needs to duplicate the data. Rather look at something that is already integrated with the phone app, with your financials, with your inventory control, and grow your business and your business software together. It is a lot easier to get into that than to wait, like Ronel said, until you lose control. Then it's expensive.
So just talk to me about, give me a scenario, how you see this thing growing. I've decided I'm going to invest in an integrated system. I'm probably going to start with core financials. What are the types of modules, functional modules I could add as my business grows? Give me some examples.
So from my point of view, most of our customers that we target are stock trading companies. They buy and sell something. So immediately I would say, if that is your situation, you need to control your inventory on the system. So inventory is definitely a module to consider switching on immediately. With that is planning, replenishment. If you do some assembly or build manufacturing, you can add manufacturing modules, MRP, planning, forecasting, configuration of items if you do a lot of custom work. So that's all in the inventory space. Then you have project accounting. If you're a contractor or a builder, you can add project accounting to measure the profitability of each project. If you do field services, you have a photocopier business and you want to service your stock at the customer side, you need to track that, service intervals, warranties and maintenance. That's a module you can add. On the financial side, fixed assets, forecasting and budgeting. I think it's endless. Whatever a business does, you will find someone that's already done it before. And most of these new ERP systems integrate with, if it's not part of the core package, they integrate seamlessly with the third-party solutions, so that you take away that data capturing functionality that exists in a non-integrated system.
Cool. So now the other thing you spoke about just now, of course, was the ability to do this anywhere, anytime.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you think the cloud-based software is really important.
Yes, definitely. The technology is becoming much more accessible and much more affordable. The comparison between buying your own server and hosting it and maintaining it and upgrading it at the pace at which things are being upgraded at this stage, it's a lot cheaper to go with a cloud-hosted system than your own hosting.
Because you no longer have to buy a server and a database. It's all, somebody's got it up there and I'm simply connecting to that stuff.
You don't need specialized IT personnel. You don't need a special room because most servers run on 16 or 15 degrees Celsius. It needs to be maintained, cooled. You need a false floor with cabling and racking, etc. So building a server room does become expensive. That's not even adding the servers to the room.
Yes.
So it's not efficient if you run a larger business or if your business is growing to buy a standard tower server, keep it on a desk in the kitchen or somewhere under someone's desk, because it will fail you. With our, and I have to say this, with our electricity situation,
Yep.
running a local server is risky at best, where cloud providers give you uptime guarantees, full redundancy and backup to your data, and the data will always be yours. So you will not lose data. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and so even if the power goes down, the Eskom power goes down, and I don't have a backup or a generator, and I can't use my PC on my desk, with most of these cloud-based systems now, as you alluded to earlier, I'm going to see that I'm going to access the app on my tablet or my cell phone.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And what I like from a management perspective is, if I'm that way inclined, I can tonight sit on my easy chair in front of the TV and quickly check the latest stock and invoicing numbers because it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if I have internet connectivity.
Yes, correct.
So I think one of the big advantages is live data.
Yes.
If you run integrated systems, there's no waiting for a data capturing responsibility or person to get to his inbox, capture it to the next system, which happens most of the time in these loose standing systems, is there's a bunch of data that must be captured into the financial system on a Friday morning at 11, because that's the schedule.
Yes.
Okay. I think, I'm convinced. It makes really good sense in small businesses that have ambitions to grow or are already seeing that growth.
Yeah.
Because they've got product that's in demand, will be in demand, and will grow in demand. So we obviously are in agreement that they should be looking at a small integrated system that can grow as their business grows and can scale.
Yes.
The other thing we think is really important is that whatever that solution is, it must be cloud-based.
Yeah.
Correct.
For all the reasons you've mentioned. Cost effectiveness, you don't have to have on-premise servers, expensive resources, personnel, that type of thing. And accessibility wherever you go, and accessibility across multiple platforms. Please tell me about price, because if people are listening to this and interesting in this, in the back of their mind is always going to go, it sounds fantastic, and I can logically understand this is what I should be doing. But how cheap is cheap or how expensive is expensive? So talk to me in principle about what is affordable if we talk about integrated cloud-based solutions.
So this is always the interesting part of the
Yeah.
conversation. It's always where you get your customer hooked or lost, and every conversation leads to this point. And I do believe in making products available, affordable to the small guy, to enable them to grow their business and to take this journey with them. So the first thing that a lot of people think is, how many millions will this cost me? And I will never afford it. So we have a way, or we figured out a way to bring this to the small business or the base business for significantly less than $1 million. I think that's
Is that just for the software, or is that for the implementation and getting it up and running?
That is a complete package, full turnkey project from
Implemented.
from engagement up to a live system. Obviously, like we mentioned, it is geared for the smaller business. It does not have all the bells and whistles of an enterprise size.
But they could grow into that
implementation.
on
But
the
it
same
does have
software?
it does come with that base, that you can grow that same software with your business to a fully fledged enterprise business management system.
Okay, I'm going to call you and I'm going to say, Pierre, I watched this video of yours and I'm really interesting. I've currently got a small financial package and I'm doing 10 spreadsheets to try and manage everything else. Please come and talk to me. How long is it going to take me to get up and running on your software?
From date of agreement, let's put it like there's a process to go to that point where we agree that we're going to take this road together.
Yes.
It is a relationship. We must understand that we are trying to build a long-term road and journey with the customers. So from the point where we agree that we like each other and we want to take on this relationship, I can have you on an integrated ERP system in as little as 8 weeks.
I'm in production.
That working on a new system.
Okay. And you teaching me how to manage the transition from the one system without losing any data I've already got on all my systems. You're going to advise me on how to manage that transition better, Ronelle?
Yes, obviously, with our implementation, we go through the whole process from looking at your business, how you work now, putting kind of standard procedures in place and processes and procedures in place, and then how you will work in the system. We do the training with you as well and bring on your take on information, customers and suppliers and so forth. Your inventory will help you with that. That's includes everything.
Okay. So for me, the summary of this discussion is if you're a small or medium business, you have ambitions to grow, you're seeing the growth in your business, it makes really good sense for you to investigate getting a fully integrated system that can scale and grow with your business early on in the process.
Yes.
As you said, that waiting until you're forced to do that is enormously complex and disruptive to your business, because then you're already sitting with lots of disparate little systems and data, and it's much more work and much more complex.
Yes.
That's correct. I think one thing that you mentioned that a lot of people don't realize is the amount of disruption it will cause a business that's already large and already complex and already runs on 20 or 30 different spreadsheets and systems, where if you get into an integrated system early in your business's life cycle, the disruption is small. So the investment in human hours or man hours from your side, from the customer side, will be much less than when you're already a big complicated business.
Cool. Thanks so much for the time to talk to you, and Ronelle, to you too.
Thanks
I
so much
really
for your time.
enjoyed the conversation,
Thank you.
and I think we've got more to discuss in some more of these sessions.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today as well, Errol. And
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Errol, for joining us today. And thank you, Pierre, for joining us and having this discussion. I think it was very insightful, and anyone can contact us with the details below. Thank you so much.